Thank you so much for that very wonderful and clear and insightful presentation, Associate Professor Dr. Supong and Dr. Willy. We're now moving on to the question and answer. We've got a lot. This is going to be a lot exciting. So let's now welcome Bam to ask the first question.
Yes, thank you, Joey. So here's the first question. If I want to do a study about reading-writing integration, can you suggest theories used for a literature review?
Yeah, very interesting. Yes. Yes, one, you might want to look at the work of Fitzgerald and Shanahan, but they work within the L1 context. Now, for references in second language writing, then one place for you to go to will be the Journal of Second Language Writing. I think there's a lot of published articles there, Journal of Second Language Writing. And there is another journal that I would recommend to you. Number one is the journal called Reading Writing Connection. I think there is such a journal actually. It's called the Reading and Writing Connection. But if my reading of the literature is correct, you know, the link has not been established very, very clearly. Although some people have been saying that, yes, reading are connected to writing. If you look at the literature on extensive reading, for example, there's a huge literature there. And the impact on extensive reading is clearly seen in writing. In other words, students who read a great deal, who have read a great deal, tend to have a good improvement in terms of their writing ability. But Ajahn Supong probably has some more specific suggestions on the literature. Thank you very much for your question.
I agree with you, Ajahn Willy, about, you know, the theory. So, you know, maybe we have to read and explore, okay, different texts and theories, you know, related to both reading and writing. There may not be a particular theory, okay, which is related, you know, to the reading and writing connection. Maybe we have to review all the theories, you know, regarding reading and writing, and then put them all together.
Yes, but one promising theory will be the genre theory to teaching writing, because genre theory can be applied to reading and also to writing as well. Because a piece of text is a piece of communication, whether it is in a reading form or in a writing format. And genre, a piece of text type is always governed by the four things that I mentioned early on. What is the purpose? What is the audience? What is the context? And what is the culture? And it's within these four elements that language is carefully selected and used to express your ideas. So I would suggest looking at the genre theory. And one big name is the guy from the UK. Ajahn Supong, what's the name of that? Ken Hyland. Ken Hyland has written quite a bit about genre theories and their application in second language writing.
And also Professor John Swell.
Yes,
John Swell. Yeah. Great, thank you. That's a very beautiful answer and very insightful. Let's have the next one. Bum.
So this question needs Professor to give us again about the meaning of genre writing approach. What is genre writing approach and how genre writing approach different from product, process, and post-process approach?
Okay, so actually, you know, genre approach, right, follows, you know, the process approach, and it could be part of, you know, the post-process approach. Okay, so that means, you know, we do not look at just product and process, but, you know, we tend to adopt, you know, the genre theory, okay, in our research, you know, we're teaching of writing. So that means, you know, again, right, we look at, as Ajahn really mentioned, okay, so, you know, when we look at, you know, a piece of text, you know, as a kind of communicative tool, okay, so that, you know, when we write a piece of text, okay, we communicate, you know, with the reader, you know, in the same discourse community, Okay, so when we read the text, when we create the text, okay, we just need to follow, all right, a certain model or a certain genre. So that means we follow the conventions, okay, the generic conventions, typical of that kind of writing. Okay, so when we write, then we analyze the purpose, we determine the audience, we look at the context, and also, yeah, as Ajahn really mentioned, the culture, so that when we teach our students, right, we can show them, okay, the examples, and then we follow, certain steps, for teaching writing using the genre approach, right, so that they can see and understand, right, the model, they can construct meaning from the model, and then they can deconstruct, they can look at the details, and of course, there are the steps that you can investigate, that you can study, right, from Ken Highland, right, the genre-based instruction. But then that means, we have a conventions, to follow, so that, we will teach our students that they can follow the models and they can write for a communicative purpose.
Thank you so much. Jack, let's have the next question.
All right, so for the next question, how can we motivate our students to start writing?
To start writing? Maybe just, give the students, some, to me, all right, I think, we should give students, to write so that, they can express, their feeling first. We start, off, with something quite simple, okay, something related, to their daily life. It depends on, of course, the levels of student you are teaching, okay. So if they can just say something related, to their daily lives, that would be meaningful, okay, for them. But then later, all right, you can give them more complex assignments. But of course, when you give writing assignments, you should not focus only on grammar or vocabulary. I think, maybe in our writing, not writing courses, but in our English courses, when we assign our students to write, we tend to focus mainly on grammar and vocabulary. So students, will not be able to write what they want to say, but they just focus too much, on the grammar or the structure of English, because they are scared, of making mistakes. Okay, so let them write as freely as they can. Okay, expressing their feelings, whatever, and then give them a note of encouragement. Okay, give positive feedback. Try to encourage you to keep writing. Do not correct grammar in the first place. If you start off, with correcting grammar, student, would be demotivated. Okay, student, would feel discouraged, to write. They will have apprehension, writing apprehension and anxiety.
Thank you so much.
Really has something else to add.
Let me just add to that. I think that's a very good and relevant question. But if you look at the question very carefully, I think you need to start by asking, why are our students not motivated in the first place? I think the answer is obvious. It's because of you. It's because of the teachers. Right. Because the teachers make it so difficult and make it so frustratingly difficult for the students to write. We focus too much, as Professor Supong mentioned, on grammatical accuracy. Right. I think one way to develop an interest in writing is to get the students to write on a daily basis. They may be writing just one word, fine. They may be writing one sentence, that's okay. But over time, they will write longer. Right. And this is also a nice place for you to build the reading and writing connection. Give students something really, really interesting to read. Let me say that again. Really, really interesting for the students to read. Something that is relevant, something that they can personally relate to. And then ask them to provide a response. Write one sentence or two sentences or one paragraph about how they feel. We rarely ask students these questions. What do you feel about reading this particular text? I think that feeling thing is important. Remember Ajahn Supong mentioned earlier on about the emotional aspect of reading and writing. I think you can relate to that.
Right.
When you read something that is sad, for example, what do? You cry. And that is a very powerful feeling, yeah? Sure. And when you write and when you submit your paper to your teacher, what do? You cry as well, because the teachers return your paper with a lot of ink, red marks. So it's an emotionally frightening experience for the students. So keep that in mind.
Right. Thank you so much. This kind of remind me, like, because I'm tutoring a high school Thai student, and he likes games, online games. So I asked him, well, what does your mom think about LOL, the LOL game? He said that, oh, my mom doesn't like. Okay, why not try to write an essay proving that your mom, that LOL is more than a game? Then maybe let's try to look at resources. Then I was so surprised that we spent the entire hour just writing that exact task. And I was so surprised the amount of information in it. So I think that's really a good advice to teachers. Thank you so much. Let's have Bam back.
Yes, Joey. So the next question is how to convert reading-writing activities to make learners more autonomous and self-regulated.
Ajahn Supong is an expert in that area. The metacognition bit, I think you mentioned that early on, yeah?
Yes. So that means, you should have your students, follow certain steps, all right, during the work, all right, on the assignments. So you should make sure that your students, develop some strategies. Okay, so you just introduce the strategies, okay, so that, when they work on their writing, they can also work as a reader, okay, and as they read, okay, they should also work as a writer. Actually, this is what Ajahn really mentioned, okay? And so I think then if they follow all the cognitive strategies, okay, like, when they know the steps, of planning, activating the background knowledge, okay? What is that? Constructing the gist, okay? Revising the draft and so on, right? They can monitor, right, their own reading and writing, so that they can move along, okay, so that when they get stuck, they have to go back, right, and they have to try, right. I mean, as a reader, maybe they can find more information, they can try to read the interpretations, in the text, okay, more accurately, and as they write, right, when they monitor their writing, okay, they should be able to go back and forth, during the recursive process, so that they can improve their writing. So it's like, you have to give them training. Okay, you have to teach them maybe these strategies more explicitly. Okay, give them opportunities, to do the reading and writing tasks, right, more independently. And then you, as a teacher, right, you will maybe play the role, of facilitator, right? You just, and also advisor. Okay, you give them some advice, so that, they can follow the steps, more systematically. And again, right, try to encourage them, motivate them, right, to keep doing the tasks, okay, reading tasks and writing tasks, right, continually.
Good answer. What is the name of the person who asked the question again? Is it Ajahn Vipada?
Yes, Ajahn Vipada.
Ajahn Vipada? Yes. Okay, let me share with you a theory, a very interesting theory of motivation. And then I'll try to relate this to metacognition and also self-regulated learning and independent learning. The theory is very easy to remember. It has two components. It's called expectancy value theory of motivation. Expectancy here refers to expectancy of success. Essentially what it means is this: if I do the task, will I be successful? If I spend 1 hour, will I be able to complete the job successfully. Expectancy of success, extremely important. The other side is value. What is the value for me? What is it for me? When I read this text, what is it for me? I mean, you know, emotionally, cognitively, affectively, socially, what does it mean to me? Does it have any value? Does the text make me happy? When I write, does it make me feel that I have achieved something? Now, if you can apply this theory in language learning in the context of reading and writing, I think your students will develop this passion. Let me say that again, this passion for reading and writing. They will start reading a lot and they will start writing a lot as well. And gradually, slowly, after 1 year, they will become an independent writer and reader. They will become an autonomous reader and writer. Your job as a teacher is extremely important. Can you make that available in your classroom? Can you give your students this feeling, hey, you know, that the students will be able to say, teachers, thank you very much. Now I know how to do it because you have taught me well. It's easy to do, it's manageable. And number two, it is important for me because the writing is interesting, it's relevant for me. The writing is doable and at the same time exciting. Very often we spend time doing, asking students to do school instead of to do life. This is different. Doing school is more like a requirement. I have to do it because I have to, is part of the school requirement. But doing life basically is different because, hey, this is something that is of interest to me. This is something that is of value to me. I want to do it. I will do it because I want to do it, not because my teachers ask me to do it. So there you go, expectancy, value, theory of motivation, very easy, very, very useful and applicable as well in the classroom context. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's have Bam to ask the next question.
Oh, it's Bam again.
Right. Yes.
Bam?
The audience asks for your suggestion in order to deal with the students who do not respond to feedback.
You mean if they do not make any changes, right?
Right.
I mean, according to the feedback, you just have, you know, maybe change the style of feedback, okay? Because you see that there are different types of feedback, right? So maybe if, like myself, okay, if my student doesn't follow my feedback or doesn't change anything, okay, following my feedback, so I would do the conferencing. So maybe I ask for clarification. I mean, I ask for I ask him or her a question, right? So that, you know, I know what he or she is feeling about the feedback, okay? And maybe my feedback is not clear enough, so you have to find out more. So you need to talk, right, to the student, right? You know, to ask, you know, what he or she doesn't understand about the feedback, so that he or she, you know, would do the correction or the revision, you know, more appropriately later.
Thank you so much. Jack, go on.
Okay. Are there ways for correcting students' writing efficiently? What about the use of technological tools for grammatical corrections? Should we encourage our students to use it?
Okay, talking about, you know, technological tools, you know, to help our students correct their grammar, I think, you know, the tools are not that useful at, the early stage, you know, of writing practice, okay? So you see that something like Grammarly, I think everyone knows Grammarly now. So it's quite limited in terms of, you know, benefit. It helps us, you know, with very, very superficial elements, you know, of writing, okay, particularly, you know, grammar and things like that. So I think we can encourage our students to use some technological tools, you know, to help them write, okay? And again, okay, if you talk about writing, you should not focus too much on grammar because, you know, writing, okay, is a kind of, you know, the expression, you know, of our feeling, the expression of the information that we want to convey, okay, to the reader. So we can use any tools, okay, to help our student, create their stories, okay, for example, okay, and then they can, when they know that they can write, so that readers can understand them, readers can appreciate their work, then they will become more motivated to keep on writing, okay, without being worried too much, about grammar. And then maybe we can use, the technological tools, to help us edit, our writing. But again, there are a lot of limitations. So, for postgraduate students, for PhD students, maybe you do not need, those things, okay? You just need to try, to self-monitor and do the self-editing on your own, okay, from observations, from your, the grammar lessons that you have learned, and also after you have read a lot of text, okay? So you can do the noticing, okay, so that, you can also write efficiently as well. So again, right, do not focus too much on.
Thank you so much. There's another question here, and I read it as, I am working on multiple text comprehension, which involves synthesizing as a skill to write and amalgamate one's understanding of multiple sources. I found it an interesting topic as a reading-writing connection. I am wondering if you have encountered this topic so far.
John, Willy?
What was the question again?
It is about multiple text comprehension.
Multiple
Okay,
text
it's
comprehension.
basically about synthesizing information. You
Right.
read from different sources, and then you try to pull together some ideas from different sources, and then sort of blend them, mix them together in a
Right.
way that makes sense to you. This is just a simple synthesis. It's a very high-level type of reading and also writing. So what was the problem there? The problem was?
Probably she was asking if you've encountered this as, let's say, an interesting topic, particularly on one way to addressing the reading and writing connection.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes. I think in academic writing context, EAP, ESP, I think that's what teachers usually do to help students to synthesize information, not just a summary, but synthesizing information from different sources. Yes, I think that's a very common, approach that ESP and, EAP teachers do to help the students with their writing of academic essays. It's a very common thing. Yeah.
Right. This is another interesting question as it relates to postgraduate students. And it reads, some of my students are very good at reading, but not at writing. Where do I start to help them improve?
Okay, good. Point number one, find out what their level is like, what their proficiency level is like. Is it above the threshold or below the threshold? If it's below the threshold, then I think you're fighting a losing battle. You're fighting a losing battle because academic writing requires a certain level of English language proficiency. And that level should be in at least IELTS 6, ideally IELTS 7 or B2. Anything below that, you will find it extremely difficult to write, anything of value in your term paper. Now, once you know that the students are above the threshold level, I think this is where the noticing things come into play. Noticing, let me say that again, the noticing becomes important. This is what I went through myself when I tried to write academic papers. Because in the old days, I used to read narratives, novels. And novels don't translate very well into academic writing. So what you need to do is to start reading, to do narrow reading on your topic of interest. That's number one. So you need to compile like 10, 20 relevant journal articles or book chapters. And then you have to read it in two different ways. The first one, read for comprehension. The first thing you need to do is you need to be able to read with good comprehension, to summarize, to synthesize the information, but that is not enough. If you stop there and then you start writing, you will find that your writing is all over the place. Yeah? because you need step number 2. Once you have got a very good understanding of these 10 or 20 journal articles, the next things for you to do is to read them again slowly. To read them slowly and to pay attention to the language features, to the organization, to the way information is presented. For example, I now know very, very well the structure of an abstract. But before, it was so difficult for me to write an abstract. What is an abstract? Apparently, an abstract is written in a certain way. There is a very, very clear, well-structured conventions. The starting point is usually a general statement about your topic. And you have to say something like, this is a topic that has been widely researched by people from all over the place or from all over the world. But yet, there's still something that has not been addressed. So that usually that's a statement. And then you start by saying, the purpose of my research is to address the gap. Then you describe your methodology, the participants, the design of your study, and the instruments that you use. And finally, you say something about the result. And then one last sentence is implications will be discussed. Once you know that, it becomes so easy because the problem now is not just the language, but now you know the structure of an abstract. That can happen if and only if you stop and pay attention. Do not just read along very quickly. That is good for comprehension, but not good for writing later. It doesn't translate very well unless you stop and pay attention to the language features.
Mami.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Ajahn Supong, would you like to add?
I want to add something about, writing, from reading as well. This is also related to, the multiple source thing that you mentioned. Okay, so particularly, when you want to write your thesis, your PhD student, right, or postgraduate students, I think, when you read, as Ajahn really mentioned, okay, do not read all the way through. When you read, and you should make notes. So note taking is very important. Okay, so you take notes. How do you take notes? You just do the paraphrasing and summarizing. Yeah. And when you write, you do not put the book, all right, next to you. Okay, because if you put the book next to you or the research article next to you as you do the literature review, for example, you cannot do the synthesis. You will do just the copying, right? And that would be a kind of plagiarism. So I think when you read from different sources, for each time of reading, okay, just make notes and then put all the books away, right? Put all the research original articles away, and then just have your notes, all right? And then after, you try to construct the meaning, from what you have read, okay, then you can do the synthesis. You can write on your own, okay? For myself, when I wrote my thesis, sometime, I chose to handwrite some part of the literature because, when you handwrite, you have enough time to think along, okay? So you can understand, what you are writing. When you type, okay, of course, it's more convenient, right? You can just type fast, okay? But sometimes, typing fast doesn't help much, with our thinking process. So, if you have time, of course, you have time, to write thesis, right? You can write maybe 15, 30 minutes or an hour every day, okay? And this is also applicable, to any kind of academic writing practice, okay? This is also for your student. Let them write sometime, using their handwriting, okay? So that they have enough time to think, right? As they go along, the writing process.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Supong and Dr. Willy, for a very comprehensive discussion packed with theoretical insights and practical applications on bridging the reading-writing gap. To sum up, to successfully bridge the reading-writing gap, we need to keep our teaching and assessment real. And that means we have to retool ourselves in understanding theories of learning, language teaching, and draw the connections among them. We have to engage our students in the reading and writing process. That means making them feel that they are not merely a requirement, but actually as a social and effective activity. And we need to assign tasks that are culturally grounded, meaningful, and understandable to students. Lastly, we have to learn to create a warm environment where students are free to express themselves, whether in reading, maybe reading aloud, without worrying to be corrected. And this has been a very wonderful day for us. And thank you so much for your kind participation, everyone. And thank you for your generous time gracing this session today, Dr. Willy and Associate Professor Dr. Supong. So for our next, this week is going to be packed with webinar series brought to you by the EIL program. Our next series is going to be on language, illness, and healthcare, happening on the 9th of July, Thursday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thailand time zone, which will be delivered by Professor Elena Semino from Lancaster University. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.